All right, so we're diving into a story today that's thousands of years old, but still has a lot to say to us in the 21st century. An ancient battle with some seriously thought-provoking takeaways.
Mm.
Get ready to unpack the Book of Numbers, specifically a story about the Israelites and the Midianites. Think war treasure and some pretty big questions about morality and justice.
Yeah, it's amazing how these ancient texts can still speak to us today.
So let's set the stage. Who are these Midianites and why are the Israelites clashing with them?
Well, the Midianites were a nomadic people who, according to the text, led the Israelites astray into idolatry and immoral behavior.
Okay, so not your typical border dispute. There's a moral dimension here.
Exactly. The Israelites, following God's command, wage war on the Midianites not just for land or resources, but as a form of divine retribution for their
Because
actions.
it's about upholding divine law, righting a wrong as they saw it.
Right.
And how did the battle itself go down?
Decisively, the Israelites, guided by Moses, win a sweeping victory. They defeat the Midianite kings and soldiers and capture vast spoils. Livestock, gold, you name it.
Sounds like a pretty convincing victory. But I have a feeling it's not just about the battle itself, right?
You got it. Here's where things get really interesting. There's a whole system for dealing with the aftermath, a blend of practical and spiritual considerations.
I'm all ears, lay it on me.
Well, for one thing, the Israelites were commanded to purify themselves and the spoils of war. It's a ritual cleansing, recognizing that even in victory contact with death carried a kind of spiritual impurity.
That's fascinating. It makes me think about how even today we have this impulse to cleanse ourselves after morally challenging situations.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't have the same rituals, but we might seek therapy, apologize, or try to make amends. It's like we're seeking a kind of moral restoration.
Absolutely. It's a human impulse that transcends time and culture.
So they've cleansed themselves and the spoils. What happens to all that treasure they captured?
Ah, the division of the spoils. This is where it gets even more interesting. It's not a free-for-all. There's a very specific system outlined in the text.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me.
A portion is dedicated to God, a portion goes to the soldiers, and the rest is distributed among the community.
Wow, so even in warfare, there's a sense of accountability. It's not just about grabbing the loot.
Right. It highlights this idea that even in victory, there's a responsibility to use the gains wisely and for the benefit of all.
And to acknowledge that maybe it's not all about to the victor go the spoils.
Exactly.
And there's a part of this story that's really difficult to grapple with. The command to kill not only the Midianite men, but also women who weren't virgins.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's undeniably a challenging passage.
It's hard to reconcile that with our modern understanding of morality.
It is. And we have to remember the historical context. Ancient warfare was a brutal reality, and the cultural norms of that time were very different from our own.
So we're not condoning it, but trying to understand it as a product of its time.
Exactly. It's a stark reminder of how much ethical perspectives have evolved over time,
It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the past.
and to wrestle with how to understand them through a modern lens.
It's like holding a mirror up to our own values and assumptions.
Right.
And amidst all the violence, there's Moses. He's demonstrating leadership in a really complex situation,
Right.
making sure that even in war, things are handled according to divine command.
Yes, he's a model of accountability, making sure the spoils are dealt with appropriately, not allowing the victory to descend into chaos or greed.
It's a powerful reminder that true leadership isn't about personal gain, but about responsible stewardship, even in the face of challenging circumstances.
Exactly. He embodies the idea that power should be used wisely and ethically, even when surrounded by temptation.
This ancient story is already packed with layers of meaning, and we're just getting started. Stay with us for part 2, where we'll dig deeper into the themes of accountability, responsibility, and leadership, and see how they connect to our lives today.
Welcome back. Picking up where we left off, we were just talking about that difficult part of the story. You know, the command to kill certain Midianite women. It's a stark reminder that we're dealing with an ancient text, a world with different values and practices.
Yeah, that part really made me stop and think. It's a reminder of how much our ideas about morality can change over time. What was considered acceptable then might be unthinkable now.
Absolutely. And it forces us to examine our own assumptions about justice and morality.
Right, because what seems abhorrent to us today was part of their cultural framework.
Exactly. And it's not about condoning it, but about trying to understand the historical context.
Right. Understanding the context doesn't mean we agree with it, but it helps us see how beliefs and practices evolve over time.
It's about asking ourselves what shapes our own moral compass. How have our views been influenced by our upbringing, our culture, the time we live in?
So moving beyond the battlefield itself, let's go back to the division of the spoils for a minute, because there's something really interesting about the system they used.
It's not just about splitting up the loot, is it? It's a system with much deeper implications.
Okay, break it down for me.
Well, remember, a portion of the spoils was dedicated to God, acknowledging his role in the victory.
Right, like acknowledging a higher power,
Yeah.
even in warfare.
It's a concept that you see throughout history in different ways, whether it's tithing, charitable giving, or simply expressing gratitude for the good things in life.
It makes you think about where our own sense of gratitude lies. Do we acknowledge forces beyond ourselves and our successes? Do we give back to something larger than ourselves?
Those are great questions. And then there's the fact that they also recognize the contributions of the soldiers who risk their lives in battle.
Right. The soldiers received their share of the spoils too, which seems fair considering the sacrifices they made.
It highlights the importance of honoring those who serve and protect, recognizing their bravery and the risks they take.
It makes you wonder if we as a society are doing enough to support our veterans and those who serve in dangerous professions today.
It's a question worth asking. And then there's the final piece of the puzzle. The rest of the community received a share of the spoils as well.
Oh, that's interesting. So it wasn't just the soldiers or religious leaders who benefited.
Exactly. Everyone shared in the rewards.
It's like recognizing that everyone played a part, even indirectly.
It reinforces the idea of unity and interdependence. It makes us think about how we contribute to the common good in our own lives. Are we working together to achieve goals that benefit everyone?
It's amazing how a story from thousands of years ago can still spark such relevant conversations today about gratitude, sacrifice, and community.
It really is. It speaks to the enduring power of these ancient texts. They grapple with these timeless human dilemmas that we still face today.
And we're not done yet. Stick with us for the final part where we'll explore what all this means for us in the 21st century. All right, so here we are, the final part of our deep dive. We've been unpacking the story from the book of Numbers, and it's been quite a journey. A story of war spoils, and some really profound questions about justice, leadership, and responsibility.
Yeah, it's incredible how much this ancient story still resonates with us today.
So let's bring it all home. What are the key takeaways we can glean from this ancient battle? What can we carry with us into our own lives?
Well, one of the things that really stands out is this idea of accountability. The Midianites faced consequences for their actions, but even the Israelites, the victors, had to undergo purification.
Right. It's a reminder that our choices have ripple effects.
Exactly, and that we're responsible not just for our actions, but also for the consequences both intended and unintended.
And it's not just about individual accountability, is it?
No, it applies to groups, too. Communities, organizations, even nations.
We're all part of a larger web,
Mm.
a complex web of cause and effect.
And speaking of responsibility, we can't forget about leadership. Moses had to navigate some really morally complex terrain.
Yeah, he had to make sure the spoils of war were handled according to divine command.
Exactly, which couldn't have been easy. But his role really highlights what true leadership is all about. It's not about personal gain or wielding power for its own sake. It's about using that power responsibly and ethically for the good of everyone.
And that makes me think about the kind of leadership we need in the world today. Leaders who can make tough decisions, guide us through complex situations, and inspire us to act with integrity even when it's hard.
Absolutely. Leaders who understand that true power is about service, not self-interest.
You know, another theme that really struck me was gratitude and generosity. Even in the midst of war, the Israelites set aside a portion of the spoils for God, recognizing a power greater than themselves.
Yeah, it's a beautiful reminder, isn't it? To cultivate humility and gratitude, to acknowledge the contributions of others and give back to something bigger than ourselves.
And not just that, they also share the spoils with the entire community.
Right, recognizing that the victory was a collective one.
A win for everyone, not just the soldiers.
Exactly, and that speaks volumes about unity and shared responsibility.
It begs the question, are we doing enough to work together for the common good? Are we sharing the fruits of our labor in a way that benefits everyone?
Important questions for all of us to consider.
So we've come to the end of our journey through this ancient battle, and it's left us with some powerful and timeless insights: accountability, responsible leadership, gratitude, generosity. These are values that matter just as much today as they did thousands of years ago.
And if this story teaches us anything, it's that history is more than just a collection of dusty old tales. It's a mirror reflecting our own values and challenges, urging us to live more consciously and responsibly in the present.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating exploration of an ancient story with some surprisingly relevant lessons for today.